Well, welcome. Oh my goodness. Hello, freshmen, the class of 2024 from the University of Scranton. We're live right now today with a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. And his name is Father Matt Ruhl, SJ. He is from the Society of Jesus. And last year, or 2 years ago, we gave him an honorary doctorate from the University of Scranton. Well, Father Matt is a very interesting fellow. So I'm going to have to tell you as you hear more about him. You're going to go to his blog. You're going to find out all about him. But if I hold up this cross, you'll see it's very unique. This cross is from Belize. Right now, Father Matt Ruhl, SJ, lives in Punta Gorda, Belize, and he is broadcasting right now from Belize City. So Father Matt, could you tell these wonderful PCPS freshmen a little bit about Father Matt Ruhl? Who are you?
Okay, all right. Well, I am, as I say, Father Matt Ruhl. I'm the ninth of 10 children, which you don't get much anymore. And I joined the Jesuits after graduating from Regis College, now Regis University in Denver. And I won't give you the details of all my formation, but when I was in Belize as a young man, the man in charge of my formation, a guy named by the name of Father Ed Knirk, said, "Okay, well, what are you thinking about your career? What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, Ed, here's the deal. Inner city North America. I find as I watch television, the only station we got in those days in Belize was WGN out of Chicago. And when you don't live in the United States, but you view it from abroad, you see you see exactly with much greater clarity all the problems that have given rise to this Black Lives Matter movement. You see that." And I said, "Well, Ed, I think I need to go into the inner city." And he said, "Well, that means that you got to study Black spirituality," which I did at Xavier in New Orleans. And then I was placed in a Black Catholic parish in North St. Louis and served a Black Catholic parish in East St. Louis. Then came back to North St. Louis, then was sent to the church at Rockhurst University, St. Francis Xavier, which is on Truce, which is an inner city roadway. And then I've been spent 8 years in the south side of Belize City, which is in a particularly violent area in Central America. And then 2 years ago, I was sent from there down to Punta Gorda, Belize, which is where I am now. So I've been 26 years in the pastoral apostolate. And when my friend Father Scott Pillars said, "Ruhl, I'm going to give you this is Father Pillars. Ruhl, I want to give you a doctorate." I said, "What for, Pillars?" And he said, "Because I want our students to see that critical reality of pastoral work. And we don't get that a lot. I want people to see what you've done, because what you've done is very important to the Society of Jesus." So I said, "Thanks, Pillars. That's the nicest thing you ever said to me." And then I came up and got the doctorate from my dear friend, Father Scott. Okay, so that's where we are right now. I have so that you have a sense of my recent past, and on the south side of Belize, is the murder rate. One of the leading cause of death at St. Martin's in Southside Belize City was murder. And in my 7 years there, 8 years there, 7 years, and I buried about 80 murdered people. And I was very up close and very personal with all the social ills that impact not just the inner city of Belize City, but these are the same issues that impact, St. Louis and Detroit and New York and all these other places. It is a tragic wonder to behold how awful and violent and brutal our inner cities can be. So now I am down in Punta Gorda, Belize, which is not as brutal, but Punta Gorda is in the Toledo district, and it is called, even Belizeans will call it the Forgotten District. And I'm the pastor of a church called St. Peter Claver in Punta Gorda. But because there's so few priests, I have 36 mission churches around the mountains of southern Belize. 36. I have one other priest helping me. I have 36 churches. I have 30 Catholic grade schools. I have over 5,000 grammar school students. I have over 200 teachers. I have 107 buildings that are all filled with termites and rats and bats. And so I've gone from remarkable violence to really remarkable poverty, especially during this pandemic when so many of our people cannot work. As you most likely know, if you know anything about Belize, we're heavily into the tourism industry. And so, and I have, there's 20,000 Mayans in these 36 churches, and many of them are related to the tourism industry. And with the collapse of that industry during this pandemic, the poverty and the hunger have just skyrocketed. I had the most depressing conversation just 10 minutes ago after Mass. A Maya woman from one of the Maya villages said her husband's abandoned her. He's working in another district and not sending any money home. She has 7 children that she's trying to get rid of. Now, if you can imagine being a mother of 7 children and telling the priest, I got to get rid of them. What a terrible reality. And she loves her kids, but she cannot feed them. She cannot feed them. So what is their life going to be like? I got to tell you, it's going to be rough. It's going to be really, really rough. So I have gone from extreme violence of South Side Belize to the extreme poverty of the Toledo district in southern Belize. And that's where I am today, and that's what I'm doing.
Wow. So thank you for sharing a little bit of your background. In other town talks, I'll tell them a little bit more, and maybe they can even write some questions for you. My question for you right now is the Penobscot College of Professional Studies. These freshmen will be our future nurses, our health administrators, our counselors, our educators, our occupational therapists, our physical therapists, our athletic physiologists, anything in healthcare, education, that's Penobscot College. We are part of a body of research called the Helping Professions. How does the Helping Professions, how does the University of Scranton, because it's a Jesuit Catholic university, how will that help transform us? We talk about being transformed. What should we be looking for?
Okay, well, the first thing, I will tell you this. The first thing, let me first of all say, I have nothing but love and respect for the healthcare field. I've had different ailments in my 60 years, and I would say that overall, the holy trinity of Mother Earth are cops, nurses, and teachers. I absolutely love, adore, and respect cops, nurses, and teachers. So I just want to put that out there, that your profession, your vocation is a critical profession. Now, how do we transform? Well, the first thing you do is you recognize, you freshmen, you need to recognize that there are places in the world that don't have any of those things that Dr. Pellegrino just enumerated. And if you ever need a shock back into your reality, or if you ever need your bubble broken, you come down here. When I have children in these villages dying of bad teeth. I have children in these villages who are mentally distressed, and there is no help whatsoever We have people that are out of their minds, and there is no psychiatric care. There's nothing. And so if you want to see how awful life can be without people like you, come to Belize. Come to Toledo District. And let me show you how awful it is for someone to be sitting in their thatch roof hut and have no hope of getting healed and of dying, and I mean dying, of the simplest little diseases that should not be a threat to human life. So if you ever need to get shocked out of your bubble, or if you ever want to appreciate the importance of your profession, come see me and I will take you up into the villages where there is no, and you know what takes the place? When you have no good doctors or therapists or counselors, you know what they do? They resort to prayer and or black magic. Down here, the black magic is called obia. And there is, when you don't have a good counselor, you don't have a good nurse, you don't have someone explaining why you're sick and how you can get over it, when you don't have somebody that can do all those things, you revert to black magic. That's what you do, or the obia. You revert to obia. And it's awful. It's just awful. It is not a very helpful way to proceed. I will tell you that right now. So, number one, you have to know how important, you must know how important your vocation is. If you don't think your vocation is important, then you need to get out of that job. Your vocation is critical to the smooth and happy and healthy running of society, period. Okay, now, with that as a baseline, here's what the Jesuit education should be doing for you, and I hope does for you in your years there. Now, you might think this is funny at first and a non sequitur, but it is not a non sequitur. Jesuits want their students, the intention of Jesuit education is eloquence. That's right, it's eloquence. All those things that Dr. Pellegrino just mentioned, all of them require speech. They all require your speaking, your talking. Okay, well, the early Jesuits had a thing, they call it the ministry of the word or the ministry of conversation. Think of all the patients you're going to talk to. Think of all the patients you have to convince to do this or not do that. Think of all of the times you're going to have to open your mouth. Now, if you're an eloquent human being, if you can't express yourself, you're doing such an incredible disservice to those you serve. A perfect example, we have doctors who come down to Belize, but they don't speak Quechua or Mopan Mayan. They don't use the same terminology. So doctors and nurses will come down to Toledo, they'll volunteer, they do it in the kindness of their heart, and they'll give prescriptions. But the people don't even understand how often, they can't get across how often they're supposed to take this medicine, or when they're supposed to take this medicine, or how long you're supposed to take this medicine. They don't know what to do because the doctors, the nurses, the counselors are absolutely ineloquent when it comes to speaking to women and men of this district. Okay, so how important is eloquence? Now, I'll say one more thing about your eloquence. Think back when you were a student, or when your mom or dad and someone gave you just a little bit of praise. When somebody you respected gave you a attaboy or an attagirl, and you can probably still remember how that lifted your spirit. Well, you guys, you freshmen, if you pursue this career of yours, there are going to be so many people that you will have the potential to build up with your speech. I will speak from experience. I've been 25 years as a pastor. Very often, people will come to me and say, Father Ruhl, do you remember when you said this and when you said that? Of course I don't remember. I can't remember all those damn conversations. I can't remember everybody I helped. Shit, I can't remember all the people I baptized, all the people I married. I can't remember all that. But then they will tell me, when you said that, it changed my life. And I thought, well, thank God. Thank God. And it was the Jesuits who gave me that gift. It was the Jesuits. I am not an eloquent human being. But the Society of Jesus took me and said, look, you're not very eloquent right now. We're going to beat it into you. And they did. They beat it into me. So here's the thing. Your eloquence is critical. And here's one final critical aspect of your eloquence. I would suspect that most of you are Christian. I would suspect that many of you are Catholic. And here's one of the things you have to do. Even if you're a Muslim, you have to explain God to the world. And you have to explain the world to the church. Really, Ignatius would say, our job, as Catholics anyway, you have to explain the world to the church and the church to the world. And it's somehow in all of the therapies and your work, you have to let people know that this is Christ or God or the Holy Spirit, whatever your denomination is, that this is God, this is the divine working through you. And people need to know, people want to know that somehow you and God are connected, because they want a doctor who has, or a nurse who has some spirituality, because you are going to be asked a ton of spiritual questions, a ton. And if you hem and haw and you're ineloquent or you get lost, well, then you're just passing on your uncertainty to your patient. No, you have to be able to talk about Jesus Christ in intelligent, adult way. You have to explain Christ to them. You have to explain Christ to them. And that somehow your healing is a reflection of Christ, who is a healer. And the things that you teach them are a reflection of Christ, who is a teacher. Oh, that's the Jesuit thing. If you take Christ out of the equation, then go to another school. Go to another school. This is Catholic education. It's Jesuit education. Period. We need to be able to speak about Christ in an intelligent, adult, fervent manner. So, what do I hope you get from Scranton? I know you're going to get a great education because you got people like Pellegrino in there. But I also want you to become eloquent. I desire, if after 4 years or however long your program is, you're ineloquent, then you fail. I want, Pellegrino wants, Scranton wants, the church wants, the Society of Jesus wants young men and women of eloquence. Eloquent. There you go.
Well, that gives us food for thought, for sure, because sometimes we just want to think we're just taking courses in our major and we forget about the beauty of theology, philosophy, the humanities. To me, some of the crisis, we see what COVID-19 is doing to our country, to the world, down in Belize, all over. We see what murders, what drugs, and you think, some days, how do you get yourself out of bed and say, I have this sense of gratitude? Well, for me, it's always been poetry. I love poetry, but you'll find something that you'll say, this gives me peace. This helps me deal with the day to day. And every day, no matter what, you give thanks. And I give thanks for you, Father Matt. In fact, I was going to go on, I was going to talk about community-based learning, but I think that's food for thought right now. And if you would come back for another talk for another week that they could maybe even ask you questions. I know that St. Ignatius of Loyola always kept a notebook and he always journaled and reflection. And you keep a notebook. In fact, you have a blog, correct?
Correct.
So I think that what I'm going to do with this class of 2024 in PCPS, I'm going to share your blog with them, because we're very modest and very humble, because one of the things that Scranton actually connected with you was we did this cycle for poverty, and where you cycled from the farthest tip of the United States and the state of Washington down to Key West, or the southern tip of Florida, and you went all the way across the United States cycling for poverty. And I want to talk about some of the things that you have done to help break the cycle of poverty. We want to come back. We want to hear more about the Jesuit term when you hear, what does it mean to be a man or woman for and with others? Because I don't think people understand that enough. And maybe our next talk, we could focus on how do you break the cycle of poverty. You talked about, even right now, our country's looking at the crisis with race. And how do we start seeing God in all things? And the AMDG that's on the corner of our buildings, every building has AMDG. How do we get past it? We have so many questions for you in this crazy world that we want to come back.
Good. I give myself to you, Scranton, class of 2024.
All right, we'll be back. So as we say, how do we say goodbye? If we were in Belize, how would we say goodbye?
Let's see. You say, Agüen, adios, pórtese bien. Right. There's a million ways, but we'll see you later.
All right. So thank you very much, and we will have you back, Father Matt. Mwah!
Adios.
Adios. All right.